Hey everyone, it's the Miserable Movie Man, back again with another video. So a friend of mine recently talked to me about his love for Superman Returns, and he inspired me to do this video. Now, hopefully you all know by now, I am a huge Superman fan. He's probably my favorite character in terms of comics of all time, and I'm a giant fan of the Christopher Reeve films. So when I heard that there was going to be a new Superman film coming out that was going to be directed by Bryan Singer, who had done The Usual Suspects, which I loved, and when I saw the VFX that were showcased in The Matrix, I thought finally we can have an amazing Superman film that will really capture everything I love about the character and do it justice.
Whoa, that's so cool, bro!
However, unfortunately, we got Superman Returns. Now, I know there's a video out there called What's So Bad About Superman Returns by Steve Shives, and I'll put a link in the description below. And I watched that video, both parts, and to be honest, I don't disagree with most of what he said. However, I do have quite a few things that I think are not great about Superman Returns, and hence my video, What's Bad About Superman Returns. Before I get into the 5 reasons, I do want to say that, in terms of what he says in the video, I don't have any issues with Superman returning to Krypton for 5 years, especially when you consider the additional backstory plot of Lex setting up a ruse to convince Superman that there's elements of Krypton he can go look at.
What?
I don't have any issues with the supposed Christ-like references. So, most of what he says in the video are things I would agree with or don't have problems or concerns with. However, I do have 5 reasons why I think Superman Returns is a bad film, as well as some reasons why I like the film. I mean, it was a little bit less than middle of the road for me, so I'm going to go into the top 5 reasons why I don't like it, as well as throw in at the end some reasons why I actually do like the film. So, without further ado, here we go. Reason number 1. I think it's too much of an homage to the original. If you're going to do a version of a film, I would want the filmmaker to make their own version. Or if they're going to homage a film, I would want them to make that homage better. Now, I know Bryan Singer is a huge fan of the Richard Donner films. Well, I say Richard Donner, I guess he's included Superman 2 because Lester was the name credit on that, even though Donner shot a large part of the footage.
You don't say.
But for me, everything that was an homage to the Donner film was worse than the original. We had the same kind of plot, but worse. The same lines, almost either lifted or reworded. We had the attempt for Brandon Routh to imitate Christopher Reeve, even, with the look to the camera at the end, which, by the way, he doesn't actually smile when he does it, so it looks a bit more like an intimidating Superman rather than someone who's everybody's friend. But, I mean, there were so many lines and so many looks and so many mannerisms that were copied from the original that it didn't feel like an homage, but really more of a desperate attempt to recreate the magic in a bottle that the original had.
If everything you're doing is bad, I want you to know this.
I mean, this is why I don't like Star Wars The Force Awakens, as I felt, it was too much like a bad copy of the original. And also why I don't like Superman Returns as much. It felt like a poor version of Richard Donner's inimitable classic. And I think Bryan Singer didn't really have, at least from what I saw, too much of his own input or direction. He just wanted to make his version of Superman 1. Point number 2. The continuity makes no sense in this film. So, Bryan Singer came out and said when this film was released, it doesn't follow Superman 3 and 4, it ignores those films, and it takes someplace, it's set someplace after Superman 2, and largely follows that continuity. But if that's the case, I mean, what happened? There are so many strange things that make no sense. I think I'm going to be pretty blunt with my spoilers here, because I'm not assuming most of you have seen the film, but I mean, does Lois know who the father is? Throughout the film it's hinted at that she does, but then when Jason shows his power, perhaps she seems as surprised as everyone else, so it's never really clear. You know, if she doesn't know who the father is, what happened there? Does she think it was a virgin birth?
Excuse me?
If she met Richard and slept with him around the same time as she slept with Superman, or just after that, maybe that makes her a bit too promiscuous for me. But really, that was a very strange piece of continuity that they decided to go with. So the whole mystery over who Jason's father is made no sense to me. You know, Lois either knows, and you know, therefore she should know who Clark is if she knows who the father is because she slept with Superman. And then when Clark returns, she pretends as if she doesn't know who he is. Or the super memory wipe kiss, which, by the way, was actually present in one of the crazy Silver Age comics.
I knew it!
Worked, and Lois doesn't remember any of that stuff, therefore she doesn't remember how she got pregnant, and now she just has a baby. So maybe she chalked it to a wild night out, but that was not great for me. Also, Jason manages to commit his first murder at the age of 5. So, yep, he saved his mum, but I think the fact that he crushed a guy with a piano is glossed over for, I guess, comedic and tension relief. Because, you know, he's going to have to live with killing somebody for the rest of his life, even if it was self-defense. Also, I guess it doesn't make sense to me that Lex is out after Superman didn't show up at his parole hearing. I don't understand how that makes any sense. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, according to some of the info on the deleted scenes and part of the plot that wasn't shown in the movie, Lex engineered Superman's interest in a return to Krypton, and therefore Superman wasn't able to show up his parole hearing, and so Lex got out. But honestly, this is Lex Luthor, the greatest criminal mind of our time, the man that tried to engineer the deaths of billions of people. Are you really telling me that you have to have Superman there as a character witness in order for him to continue his incarceration? That also made no sense to me.
Makes no sense.
And then, you know, just ignoring Superman 3 and 4, I mean, just the way that Lois treats Clark, you know, all of those things, Perry and the characters and the way they treat each other do not seem to be consistent with the end of Superman 2. It's almost as if they've gone back to Superman 1 to a degree to make it look and sound interesting. A couple of other things that were strange to me about this film. There was a scene where Lex was testing the crystal and somehow managed to have an entire miniature replica of Metropolis in the basement. But the thing that was the really strange part was when everything was getting destroyed on the model version, you could hear screams coming from the models and crazy sound effects coming from the destruction. That really made no sense. And also the scene when Clark has come back and he's watching all of his heroics on the monitors in the Daily Planet. It almost seemed as if he was in awe of what he was doing himself. So again, just kind of a strange scene to me that didn't really fit the tone. Oh, and what was up with the 2 dogs? Wasn't there one when we left?
Those dogs are wild dogs.
Cannibalistic dog. That was both extremely strange to see and not particularly funny for me. Did not know what that was supposed to represent from a tonal perspective. Number 3, Superman's character. Now, I know people will say there's loads of versions of Superman, and when he turned up in the late 30s, he actually was a social justice crusader who, you know, forked out some pretty severe punishments on the bad guys. But then we get to the Silver Age, and then we get to the Golden Age. After Golden Age, we get Silver Age and the Bronze Age, sorry. And the character changed over time. And the big blue Boy Scout is the one I grew up with. I think that's the one that the world needs. I think that's the character where I feel, the world is able to look up to and aspire to be like.
You think I'm Superman?
So I wasn't really a big fan of the way they interpreted Superman's character in Returns. This is Singer's version, certainly, and you could make that claim that, this is Bryan Singer's take on the character, and fair enough. If that's the case, then maybe this point isn't so much of a gripe, but, sort of personal preference. But a lot of the tenets of the character that I kind of hold true to be, unbreakable, didn't really sit well with me in the way Singer interpreted them. As I said, I have no issues with him spending 5 years to find the remains of Krypton, and I know the backstory that Luthor got Kal Penn's character, who was a Daily Planet science reporter, to help him, and that Kal Penn's character got disgraced because of it. But so many things Superman did felt unnatural. I mean, he spies on Lois. He tries to win her back pretty much immediately, even though Richard seems like an amazing guy. While he's having a Budweiser with Jimmy, he's moaning that things have changed, and he's not particularly happy with his predicament. And even when he gets beaten up, he's whining. It's a little bit muffled, but you can hear him saying, you can't do this to me, I'm Superman, and almost crying to some degree. To me, none of these things are in keeping with the character. Even in the face of extreme pain or extreme obstacles, Superman never gives up. He doesn't whine, he doesn't moan, he doesn't cry. He definitely doesn't spy on people.
He's a peeping Tom.
All these things are very un-Superman-like for me. And in fact, I was actually rooting for Richard over him. Even little things, like when he messes with his dog. I mean, he throws a baseball into outer space, the dog's about to retrieve it, and wait, he can't get it. Now, I know that was played for some kind of comedic effect, and it does have a little shout out to Superman 4, by the way, where he hits it into space through a little bit of frustration. But, the dog was looking at him like, what did you just do, man? I mean, come on, how can I get that? Then also when he's blowing out Lois's lighter, now I get he was trying to be funny or smart or cute or whatever it was, but, I mean, personal choice is something Superman has always respected, so I don't really see that being true to who he is. The spying on Lois and trying to break her up and saying let's go out for dinner and basically trying to get her and Richard to split up to some degree. I know he's annoyed that Lois moved on, but Superman is not a homewrecker. He's not a peeping Tom. So all of these elements of the character really did not sit well with me at all. Next point is about Brandon Routh's acting, or Brandon Routh's acting. I'm still not sure how you pronounce his name, but even Brandon Routh said it himself that he was perhaps too young for the role, maybe not developed enough as an actor. He tries so hard to imitate Reeve, but he has no presence for me, no gravitas, no strength in the suit. I don't get any real sense of power in the way that I do through Henry Cavill, at least. I mean, Cavill through his acting really conveys Superman's power outwardly. And Reeve, to me, equally portrayed it, but much more inwardly. You definitely got the sense that both of these people, these actors portraying Superman, were gods. But when Routh steps in the suit, it's almost like a boy who yearns to be a man. He has neither inward or outward power that he kind of exemplifies. I mean, the one scene where he comes close is when he's lifting the island up. But even then, his face scrunching up looks more like he's constipated than anything else. His voice is the worst part for me, as he doesn't change it at all. He sounds exactly the same as Clark and Superman, and a far cry from the amazing job Reeve does to accentuate the differences. So, I think if Brandon Routh was doing the role today, he would be amazing, and in fact, I loved seeing him portray his version of Superman again in the Crisis crossover on the CW. That was a really amazing thing to see, and I'm glad he got the chance to revisit the character and put some closure on it. But honestly, he's a great actor now, but when he did Superman Returns, I think it was his first big job, and I think he spent far too long trying to imitate Reeve than acting well. Final point for me before I get onto some of the things that I did like about the film. So, the supporting characters. Usually in a Superman film you have a great supporting cast. You have a strong Lois, a gruff Perry, some great villains and henchmen. But Returns was lacking for me in every one of these departments. I'll talk about Richard and Jimmy later, as I really like these two characters. But a mild-mannered Perry White does not sit well with me. Frank Langella's an amazing actor, but he was apparently told to be the opposite of J. Jonah Jameson in this film, and I think they missed a trick.
Now, get your pretty little portfolio off my desk before I go into a diabetic coma.
Lois is a pretty conflicted character in this film, but I mean, Bosworth tries her best, but in my humble opinion, she just isn't up to it. In the history of great Lois Lanes, she's pretty low down on my list. The henchmen in this film seem pointless. Cal Penn's character had one line, and he just looked stupid throughout the film. I mean, I said before, it's a shame the backstory and additional scenes of his character were cut, as I think that would have really added enough to it. But, you know, both him and the other heavies, like the guy with the serial killer tattoo, basically seemed irrelevant, just there to look cool. Kitty tries her best to be a version of Miss Tessmacher, but honestly, I think she's marginally better than the rest of them. And finally, we come to Spacey. A gleeful, prancing imp of a Lex, who hammed it up so much that the interesting and brilliant things about the character got lost for me. Spacey could have been one of the greatest actors of our time, and maybe some say he still is, but his approach for Lex is almost Silver Age in nature, and really didn't fit the tone of the film for me. Ignoring how such a brilliant mind as Lex is has to resort to fleecing an aging millionairess and show her pleasure she's never seen.
Sorry, TMI.
I mean, Spacey only stands out when he's shouting wrong or speaking very slowly. Something like, I don't think that's it. Other than that, I did not find Spacey's character interesting or memorable. So that's it. Those are the 5 reasons why I think Superman Returns is bad, or what's bad about Superman Returns. As I said, I do like some elements of the film. It's not all bad for me, and I'll go into those now. So first thing I liked about the film were Richard and Jimmy. I thought James Marsden and Sam Huntington did great jobs. Richard White as a character is one that I initially was wondering what they were going to do with him or how they were going to make him.
Who's this guy?
But I think he stood out as one of the great characters of the film. He's a great dad. He's a nice guy. He feels a little bit threatened. Of course, anyone would with Superman, but certainly not with Clark. But he's generally, you know, a very self-sacrificing and giving character, to the point where I preferred him over Superman. As I said, I was rooting for him over Superman, and that's never good in a Superman film. I thought Sam Huntington did a great job as Jimmy. There's been a lot of takes on Jimmy over the years, but he had, you know, enough naivete and a little bit of goofiness about him, and clearly he was there to give the audience some background information from an expository nature. But I really enjoyed his performance too, so I definitely like those two characters in the film. Next thing with the visual effects. I think the visual effects are still good to this day. They hold up. They did a really great job on them, and it was wonderful to see some of the things that they showed with Superman in space and the space shuttle rescue, all of the feats of daring that he had. The VFX in this film, I think, were very meticulously prepared, and to be honest, better than Leia flying through space, let's put it that way. I think that was a poor version in The Last Jedi. I like the origin sequence. We got a sense of it in Superman 1 clearly, but there was a very nice packaged shortened version in this film that I thought was really well put together. They didn't have to spend as much money on the effects as they did, or at least come up with the ways to do them as when they did Superman 1. So they could really come up with some cool new imagery, and the exhilaration and delight, I think, when Clark first comes into his powers is really well portrayed on screen. So definitely like the origin sequence. Some of the visual shots I thought were amazing. When you look at the imagery in the film, I think that is great and really holds up. You have many homages to the comics. The space shuttle rescue is taken straight from John Byrne's 1986 Man of Steel, which for me was one of the seminal Superman stories. That's when I was 10 years old, very impressionable, and really enjoying reading it. So,
paper bag or triple mylar?
I thought the visual shots of the shuttle coming into the stadium, the people standing on the street, there were the shots of him being Atlas by holding the Daily Planet ball, and the car, taking the Kryptonite island into space, flying backwards and heat visioning all the debris. There were loads and loads of amazing visual shots in this film, even when Superman's falling to Earth or opens his eyes after he's looking around Earth, or when he has the bullets bounce off his eye. All of those were amazing. So I'll definitely give the film a lot of credit for that. Final point is the cape. Superman's cape is a real hard element to nail, and I think it's one of those things that people don't really understand how difficult it is to get done. Now, I'm not in the movie business, but everything I've seen and read and heard makes it one of those elements that is very tricky to get right.
Who wears a cape?
They went through about 5 different capes on Lois and Clark. I know when Reeve was filming, they had a number of different capes, and getting the cape flutter, getting the cape movement right was something that many producers and directors and effects guys have struggled with for a while. I think they do a good job on most films, but this film, I think, is probably the best they've done it. The way that the cape moves, the way the cape ripples in the wind, the color of the cape, the way it sits, everything about the cape was great. When you look at Cavill's cape, to some point, I think at least in the first film, it's trailing on the ground and almost collecting dust as it's flying by, as he's walking along. So for me, this film, they nailed the cape, and that was wonderful to see. May sound like a minor point, but hey, I'm giving credit where credit's due. So there you go. Those are my 5 reasons why I think Superman Returns is bad, and also some reasons why I enjoyed the film. As I said before, my view is it's an okay film. I don't particularly like the way they had Superman in this film, but there are other elements to appreciate. Probably gets around a 5.5 out of 10 for me. But I know some people love this film, and I know some people really hate this film, so it is divisive. But anyway, I'll leave it at that. Tell me what you think. Put some comments in the comments below. If you like the video, please subscribe to the channel and share it as much as possible. And I will catch you next time. Stay safe and see you later.